Welcome to the Godzilla podcast. Here we have our very first all-out monster rumble. We have in the red corner King Ghidorah, coming to oppose our reigning champ Godzilla in the blue corner. King Ghidorah weighing in at a 80,000 space ton. He's a Titan of Terror, 3 heads, 2 tails, golden all over at the moment, at least. And Godzilla, the reigning champ, of course, rising from the ocean for this rumble. We go ringside with Joe.
Oh, Drew, it is gonna be a battle tonight. In fact, King Ghidorah is so ready to take on Godzilla that he has taken off the rainbow jumpsuit he had before and has traded it in for this gold kingly golden suit, Drew.
Oh man, he's I've heard about this rumble for a while. This has been a long time in the making. Absolutely. We're going ringside to Caleb in King Ghidorah's corner.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had him don the gold cloak because clearly he's the king. He's going to fight, 3 monsters tonight? Three people? Come on.
3
This guy's going to trash him, and no matter how many, 3, 6, 9, they can throw as many as they want at him. The gold cloak says it all.
3 heads.
We got rid of that that other one. It was recently. It's kind of up in the air as far as what it means. And the king, he's more of a gold guy, as it were. So we're not worried about the fight tonight. It's nothing.
I do see that the gold suits him better.
Yeah, definitely. The other, I don't want to talk about the other one.
You mentioned it yourself. Godzilla has begrudgingly joined forces with what monsters, Joe?
Yeah, they nodded and they shook their heads. And boy, did they come out fighting.
Before this contest of gargantuan might begins, I heard a rumor that this wasn't even Godzilla's idea to team up. Whose idea was this?
I don't know.
I heard it was Mothra. I heard Mothra was the peaceful one.
Mothra!
Yeah, you don't remember that?
that might have been the case, Drew.
All right, that's all rumor speculation, but all we know is we have Mothra, Rodan, Godzilla in corner blue versus King Ghidorah fighting for the title tonight. Let's have an all-out monster rumble! This Godzilla podcast has been a long time coming, Joe, has it not?
It has been. Welcome, everybody, to the Godzilla podcast. This is, of course, Drew. I am Joe, and we are once again having our really pissed off guest.
How am I really pissed off?
How could you be pissed off this time? What about? I think you just threw that out there. I don't know what he'd be pissed off about, to be honest.
Oh, no, nothing at all. You're right, actually. I don't even know. Yeah, you have nothing to complain about in this movie. It's a perfect film.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Roger Ebert gave it 10 out of 10 stars.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he would now, even from the grave.
4 thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, Leonard Maltin gave it 2.5.
No jaws up, though. No jaws up.
No.
Just.
If we're talking real reviews, Leonard Maltin gave it 2.5.
All right. So if you've never joined us before, we are the Godzilla Podcast. You can find us at GodzillaPodcast.com. And by the way, if you want to support the show, there's actually links for that as well. And you can contact us through that page. And real quick, this is a commentary / podcast, which means that we actually play the movie and do the commentary over it, and that's our podcast. So you can watch it or you can listen to the show as a podcast, or you can watch along with us.
Absolutely. If you're new to these Godzilla films, there's no need to own a Godzilla film. You can listen and enjoy Caleb agrees. our outsider.
Kidding. Jeez.
We love them. Caleb's our outsider.
Yeah.
Caleb's a dick.
I love one of them. 2 of them, I guess, so far.
Yeah?
Yeah. One of them you haven't reviewed. I don't think you will, actually. The legendary one.
Oh, we will.
Okay.
We'll get to it.
All right.
You're down the road.
It's way down there.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So today is Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. We are going to be doing the English language track. We are not going to be doing a commentary for the Japanese version. The reason for that is that although there are changes between the two versions,
They're minor.
they're minor. We watched the English one first with Caleb, and then me and Drew watched the Japanese one later, and it was like, what changed? Now I have a list of what changed, and we'll get into that when the commentary starts.
Yes, and another reason quickly that we do this American version, we're doing it over the American version, is if you feel like dropping $2.99, $3.99 through Amazon or other platforms, you can rent this film and view it, and you can have it for 3 days so you can watch with the commentary. It's just easier to get a hold of these American versions.
Yeah. That's a good point. All right, so let's get into that. Schweiss, if you could hover your mouse over the play movie button, we'll start the movie in 3, 2, 1, and go. Oh boy.
Who wants to talk about how this movie starts? The stills of the fighting between the,
Yeah, that seems to actually be like a 70s movie motif or like a late 60s movie motif. And of course, this movie came out in 1964, so it kind of fits with all that. And I guess Ishiro Hondo actually uses this a lot. He uses a lot, like starting in this movie. It might have even started in earlier movies of his. He had, of course, there's other monster movies that he's directed in between the Godzilla films.
Yeah, you're thrown right into the action as it's showing the
basically showing the ending fight.
Oh yeah. But very little of it.
This is what a lot of older movies do. Like Raging Bull, I think, does that in the beginning, doesn't it? Or is it another fighter that I'm thinking
you're
of?
thinking of a different movie that's not Raging Bull. Raging Bull starts with the silence and him.
Oh, that's right.
Just like meditating in the fight.
Comparing Raging Bull to King Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
Hey, we did say it was the greatest movie of all time.
San Dai Kaiju Chikyu Saidai no Kesen. And that was the most perfect Japanese accent that I could muster up. It's actually called Three Giant Monsters, The Greatest Battle on Earth is the real title. The Japanese, the translation for the original Japanese title.
Oh, okay.
It was released here in the States as Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster. It was, of course, directed by our usual director. He has, with the exception of Godzilla Raids Again.
Yes.
He has directed every single one of the films.
So
Ishiro
far
Honda.
in this chronology, yes.
Yes. Also featuring special effects by Eiji Tsuburaya, starring Yasuke Natsuki, Hiroshi Koizumi, and Akiko Wakabayashi, which are some... Oh, man, mouthfuls of names.
Basically, the main cast of this, our suit actors, are the same that we've had through these films so far.
So, we are getting to this opener, Drew. You want to talk about this opening scene?
Yeah, what we need to say is that in the space between our last podcast, and it's been a while since we've done one, Joe, Caleb, and I have viewed both the American and the Japanese versions of this film. We viewed the American version first, and afterward, watching the Japanese version, we had hoped that it would clear up some glaring weirdnesses. I don't know how you'd say that, but this opens with a news reporter, a female, in the midst of some what appear to be cultists.
Sorry.
Okay, yes. Man pops up into frame. But the audience, you're supposed to relate to this woman, okay? They're around some cultist-like scientists who are all scolding her for not believing in spacemen. And so I can only imagine to Japanese audiences at the time, and of course today as well, the majority of people are not going to believe in spacemen. They're not going to believe in all this ridiculousness. And she's being made fun of by people surrounding her for not believing in that.
What about Asian Obama? Do you believe in that? Because that's what that guy looks like to me.
Oh my gosh. They just keep popping up into frame.
Yeah.
And Joe noticed or pointed out that the focus is not on the person who's speaking.
Yeah, that's true. The focus is kind of bad in this scene. The person who's speaking is slightly out of focus, but the person to his right is sharply in focus, just kind of watching the whole scene happen. It's kind of funny to see an extra do that. Something that was pointed out in our Bible, the Mushroom Clouds and Mushroom Men, the films of Ishiro Honda, or whatever the book is called, is that within that scene, one of the extras in the background is in both the shot where the reporter is asking the questions, and also the man who is answering the questions. His own single on him.
Man, I bet you Peter Jackson watched this movie all the time. Like, just do whatever. They were over this area, right?
Peter Jackson, it's on the Hobbit extras. He goes, continuity is for sissies.
Oh, man, really?
Yeah, there's some blaring ones in the Lord of the Rings, so that's funny. That's
just lastly, really quick, because you were talking about the titles for these films in both Japanese and the American version is simply Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. In Germany, these movies, this era of Godzilla films were released in the late 90s, and you're going to find some very strange titles for them. For some reason, these titles were changed to, if you directly translate it from the German, they keep referring to Godzilla as Frankenstein's monster. So it's Frankenstein's monsters fight against Ghidorah. Yeah, I don't know who is in charge of that. Does Godzilla look like Frankenstein to you?
No, but something that is also off-putting about this film, not only that Godzilla doesn't look like Frankenstein in the German version, but that the aliens or this nation or whatever what is this, first off?
It's a Earth nation that I confused for aliens because their dress is so weird. They look like they're straight out of like Victorian era, maybe Shakespeare.
Those guys look like Santa Claus.
Very Japanese.
Yeah.
So weird. And also, okay.
It's like Japanese people doing Shakespeare is what this looks like.
We got to start off with problems with this film. We just have to. I mean, you can go into the details of behind the scenes, but just quickly, we're supposed to feel for this princess, right? She's going to be basically a main character who's going to be hypnotized throughout the whole film. She has zero background information given to the audience about her. She's sitting in a plane. She becomes hypnotized supposedly by aliens. That's unclear. The plane blows up.
Well, it must have been supposedly by aliens because the first scene they had the reporter talking about UFOs.
But I'm in it. Okay, Joe, I have thought and overthought about this film. I hated it at the beginning, and in thinking about it, I regretfully have convinced myself that I really like it as a self-contained film. And I kid you not, because I don't want to overuse this phrase, but jumping the shark. Would you not say that this era of Godzilla film jumps the shark?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay.
Jumping the shark.
If
bad.
this is a self-contained film, which it's not, you have to look at what comes after, which Ghidorah is going to be in the next one.
Later, suckers.
She just jumps out of the plane.
Bam!
The great little plane explosion. But anyway, so it's all ambiguous in this film. We don't see spacemen. Ghidorah may fall from the sky from a meteor, but, you know, her becoming a prophetess, this princess, and kind of taking on a different role, and she's hypnotized and yada yada, becomes a main character with our main characters of the film. It's never clear. It's never like explicitly stated to the audience, even at the end, whether it was actually aliens or not. Whether there really were
So the other
aliens.
dudes were like into alien UFO stuff, and then she sees a light, jumps out of an airplane, by the way, if you're not watching the movie, and the airplane explodes after she's jumped out of the airplane.
Yep.
After she's opened the hatch. I think there's like a depressurization thing, like if the airplane's high enough up,
Yeah, I don't know
that
if it would
happens if you open the
explode.
hatch, that the airplane's supposed to explode.
I know something bad would happen. I don't know if it would cause an explosion.
That's what I've heard, but I mean, that could be totally unscientific and wrong.
I don't know if it explodes. I know it this would start sucking shit out, so it would have been crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll get more into my thing about this throughout the film. And yep, here we go, Joe. What do you have?
Well, Akiko Wakabayashi, who plays the princess, she was actually another Bond. We got another Bond girl.
Oh,
So we had a Bond girl in King Kong Escapes, and we have another Bond girl in this film, and she plays the princess, and she jumps out of the plane. and
they're
stuff.
pretty easy to pick out because they look like Bond girls.
Yeah, there's something about them that like looks a little like unearthly. Yeah.
Something very nice.
They look fit
I think
for a Bond.
it's in You Only Live Twice. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure which one it is, but
Anyway, she's beautiful.
yeah, she is beautiful. So something about this film and its film Mothra versus Godzilla that we previously watched. They were actually made in the same year, or they were released in the same year. They were made back to back.
Yeah, and in thinking about that, I can kind of see, although it's not going into the same troubles that the shoot for Godzilla Raids Again had, where they had a success with Godzilla, and then they rushed into a sequel because they made money off the film. This is somewhat the same deal, where Mothra vs. Godzilla made money. They rushed into Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. I think that's where maybe some of the problems with the screenplay come in, some of the weirdness. What do you think, Joe? Was it just rushed?
I think it might have been rushed. However, it seems like one of the screenwriters could have been one of the reasons why this Godzilla movie. I'm not going to say Godzilla vs. Mothra is like the most serious film in the world, but it definitely takes itself more seriously than this film does.
Very much so.
We go from like, the giant monster movies that we've known in the previous 4 Godzilla films, which are genuinely like, oh, they're scary, except for Mothra, she's good. Godzilla's still evil. And we go into this film where Godzilla, for the first time ever, shows mercy, and I guess has a heart. It defends Earth in a way.
Somewhat begrudgingly. It's a little ambiguous as to whether he's defending Earth or he's just defending his pride in this one to me. Later films in the same era of Godzilla films, he's definitely a defender of the Earth, like hero champion. But this one, it seems a little iffy.
Yeah. We have all-out comedy with the fight scenes.
Absolutely.
Which are poorly choreographed.
That's giving the film a compliment.
And including, by the way, Godzilla getting kicked in the balls, which
multiple times. Many things happen to Godzilla's crotch in this film.
I'm sure we'll get to the point when because it lasts 20 minutes of the freaking film, when the monsters are talking to each other and they're just having like a petty argument. I mean, this movie, coming off of Godzilla vs. Mothra, which I think is probably the second or third best Godzilla movie that I've seen so far.
Of any era?
Of any era.
Oh. Wow.
I surprised, like we as you said, it jumps the shark and it jumps it bad. This movie is...
Again, I have to say that self-contained film, not looking at its sequels or really anything before it holds up, but only upon consideration of what's actually in the film, because we know what happens next. In Invasion of the Astro Monster, there's full-on spacemen. Shows them they're part of the plot. They're like an evil...
We're just getting more and more ridiculous.
Yeah, so, Joe, I think it's just because this is the first Godzilla film in the series that introduces space elements really out there. I mean, with Mothra and with, say, King Kong, who they've already had, they're more like deities that have been worshipped by people on Earth. They're like ancient, monsters. They're not from space, and there's no mention of spacemen. This one's starting to get a little out there. And I'm a fan.
Just a little bit. It opens with a, hey, are UFOs real?
Yeah, and I do agree with you. It doesn't actually explain anything from what I remember. She just is. She's just there.
And she could have a mental problem.
She's like, oh, I thought I was this princess by the end. And she's like, but I think I was wrong. She had amnesia or something like that.
Yeah, it's all like, it could have been aliens.
Or they could have just been having some weird like sex party where they're all dressed up like these ancient freaking...
I think you're taking my theory a little far, but yeah.
Something was going on in that plane, man.
Oh, absolutely. The Shakespearean colors there.
Yeah, we got the Ash Ketchum guys over here.
So the princess who fell out of the plane, she reappears in the midst of, I'm presuming, Tokyo as a prophetess, and everyone's gathered around here. When we were very first viewing the American version, I had to say, are there no crazy people in Japan? These people think it's like an anomaly that a woman's standing on a street corner prophesying stuff, and there's hundreds of people around her.
We should listen to what she has to say. She must be a totally normal human being. She's also kind of hot.
Stretches our disbelief here. We're
a bit.
A lot bit.
So I think let's see. I think it was this screenwriter, Shinichi Sekizawa, that's kind of credited with making the movies less serious.
Yeah.
He started his film career in animation.
Oh, okay.
Before writing and directing a thriller called Fearful Attack of the Flying Saucer. And then he was brought to Toho to make movies. And Sekizawa thought that the Godzilla films were great fun and should be enjoyed as such, as opposed to like, you know, I guess they're still fun, right? But they're more serious in tone. I don't know how to like.
I know that there were two of this era Godzilla films. There's basically two different writers of these screenplays, and one of them, I guess would be Shinichi. He's the less serious one of the two when writing a film, and then there's another one who writes slightly more serious.
Kimura, yeah, Takeshi Kimura.
Yes,
he apparently favored a serious approach and wanted to introduce like political like undertones within the films.
Yeah,
which I didn't really like.
That's probably tough for
I
you to
haven't
even
seen it.
acknowledge, because it's 60s, 70s Japan politics. Like we don't know anything about that.
it had to be very subtle. I don't know.
And so he was also into like the eerie mysteries, the tragedies, and horror type of stuff. And so this is kind of their movie together. I like. I guess you can see it. It's kind of an uneven film in many ways. Many ways.
A basic facts about this film is this is King Ghidorah's first appearance in it's his debut, and unlike Rodan and Mothra, who had their singular debuts as just the title monster, and it was just them in the film. Godzilla as well in his debut, but King Ghidorah was made to be the main villain of the Toho-verse. I knew that he was Godzilla's foe, his main arch nemesis, whatever. But apparently he's also Mothra's. I'm less familiar with the Mothra standalone films that perhaps happened in the 90s. There's like a trilogy of them. But apparently he's also the main villain for the Mothra series.
Well, I definitely hated him right out of the gate. I mean,
he's knocking him all over in this film.
Yeah, he's beating the shit out of Mothra.
Yeah, Mothra should have evolved or what. I play a lot of Pokemon. Should have went into its egg form and just destroyed him, but not enough time.
Yeah, so Sekizawa wanted the movies to go. Listen to this. He was reportedly active in the practical end of the filmmaking as well, urging that the Godzilla suits would be redesigned to allow the monsters to become more of an action hero type thing. It's this dude's fault.
That makes me want to cringe.
Shinichi Sekizawa, you ruined Godzilla.
Well, we're gonna see in the as we've progressed through the chronology of these films, the suits do become easier and easier for the suit actor to move, especially Godzilla's suit. And in this film, of the films we've viewed so far, this was supposed to be the simplest for him to do, like, complicated maneuvers in, to do fight scenes and whatever. And yet, the fighting in this isn't very good.
They just kick him in the nuts a lot, and
he trips.
Like, hey, you got a lot of movement in there. Boom!
And they knock a rock back and forth for a minute or two.
Hot potato.
So another kind of thing that kind of goes against the films that we saw before this. These two comedians, which are actually, they were real comedians in Japan. They were known people. And this pitter-patter dialogue that they had between them in the Japanese version of the movie, that's actually like their specialty. That is what they do. So
the real comedian they used in the Mothra standalone film as a main character, I think he worked really well.
Yeah, I think so too. But these guys are kind of like it's a weird cameo appearance. Anyway, so they're actually going to open a show here, and this show features the Peanuts, who are, of course, the two girls that I guess are humans.
They're fairies.
They're fairies that deal with Mothra.
They're Mothra's priestesses. They speak for Mothra, just like the Lorax speaks for the trees.
In the movies before this, they were forced to do these shows.
Yep.
Now it's like their thing.
And there's no explanation given. Like the focus,
capitalism.
The focus of Mothra was to get them away from these shows. They were being exploited, and now it's like, no, we're back.
Well, Mothra's getting royalties off of it now, so she's like, meh, I'm okay.
Paying for the island people to live a better subsistence.
Yeah, it's all for the people.
But it's just, that was it kind of negates the whole purpose of the Mothra standalone film, because they spent the whole film trying to get him away from this evil guy, get him back to the island. Here they are again. It's like the heroic deeds made by our main characters in Mothra.
So the voice acting, and I'm not sure if it was the same company. I know this this American re-edit and redubbing. It's distributed by Continental. I can't remember who distributed Godzilla vs. Mothra, but there's something about these two, their voices, the Peanuts voices in this movie versus Godzilla vs. Mothra.
You can't even understand them sometimes.
Godzilla vs. Mothra, you could understand. It was clear they were talking at the same time.
Yeah, it's like the track.
But now we got like a delay on one track.
Yeah, it's like a fourth of a second.
And it's like, what did they just say?
Yeah, it's like as if
in the English edition.
It's as if one of them knew their lines, the other one was just trying to follow along, or just they were so off. It's bad. We were all looking at each other just like so confused watching this film. Luckily, the two fairies don't have very many lines, at least.
And we get this. Is this the music video section of the movie?
Yeah.
It's like they start,
your ass, girl.
They start singing their song,
girl.
and then we get like these visual, like almost what you would see in like an 80s music video with like a lot of cross footage, like film on top of other pieces of film.
Yeah.
I also like, Joe, have you noticed we're getting less and less island extras each film? They're like decreasing in number. So
we're not going to pay for like 60 people. Let's just get like 20.
Either that or, like in Mothra, the island was like dying from nuclear holocaust, basically. They're just dying. So, either you could put a dark spin on it, or you could be a realist and say that Toho is not paying for any more black-faced Japanese people to play Islanders.
Had you ever seen this movie before, Drew?
Nope. I'm really not familiar with very many films that King Ghidorah has been in. So after watching this one thing that I'm very excited to look for is what my
There's
favorite
that music video shot.
Oh, the two the Peanuts, or the singers' names that play the little
They're superimposed on the sides of the screen.
And the Islanders are in the middle.
Yep.
It's kind of a cool shot. It's very 80s-ish, as you were saying.
I mean, this is 1964, so in a way, it's ahead of its time, right?
And yet it's so horribly dated today.
Now we need some like really technicolor-y sort of film. I don't know.
What in the world? They were watching that on TV?
And they're watching,
So apparently there was a cameraman on the island with them.
Songception. Yeah. Not only were they performing just the song in front of the group, but we also got a music video. But at the same time, that music video that we get is being broadcasted to the real characters in this movie that are not at the theater. Just think about that for a second. Just think about it. I would like to also add that the reporter who was like on top of her brother just a little while ago.
Yeah.
I love her. I'm a big fan. I mean, not as big as Linda.
Oh, and speaking of which, future giveaways, I'll not say anything but that.
Oh.
Dun, dun. Oh. Gonna get some Linda Miller up in here to our fans.
Linda Miller. She's no Linda Miller, but she is... And she's quite cute.
If I were to guess, there's a 90-something% chance we'll never see her again in these films. It seems like the females, we talked about this last time, the females make an appeance and then they're switched out with the next one.
Yeah.
Kind of who was hot at the time or whatever.
Well, these movies were being made like factory movies.
Oh,
it's just like the studio system in Hollywood, if not... They made twice as many films, it almost seems like, for half as much money. I'm
going to repeat this fact next time to make sure I'm completely correct, but okay. It's between 62 and 63 to about 74 or 76. So it's like a 10-ish year gap. There are 10 or 11 films in that gap of Godzilla films between about 62, 63 to 74, 76. They released one every single year.
That doesn't count the other kaiju movies they were making.
Exactly. So they were probably reusing assets, sets, suits. It's just
Marvel.
Godzilla. They were pumping them out so much. And I can tell why theater audiences would have just been burnt out. I mean, as much as you can love Godzilla, you're being overexposed to what's supposed to be like a spectacle.
Well, we don't even know if they were burnt out. I do wonder, like, when we get to the final Godzilla films of the Showa era, which I think go to like the mid 70s. I will probably do some research and see what the Japanese audience thought of the Godzilla films at the time. I mean, they were definitely kids' films by then.
Yes.
But even then, like...
Well, I just remember reading from our Bible early on that they were becoming less and less well attended up to their break between this era and the next one.
That's why they do that, right?
Well, exactly. But
That's why they break.
We're taking a break.
Yeah.
Big break.
We're going to reimagine and try to do it right.
We're going to recoup our losses on these Godzilla. He's still an icon, but he was just not as big a draw as he was originally.
Yeah, so the first time I watched this film, it was a while ago, and like for some odd reason, this movie just keeps like I can't remember anything from this movie. I've watched it 3 times.
I wish I could forget.
And this movie is like an enigma in my mind. It like doesn't come to the surface. I have seen this movie 3 times.
Really?
And you asked me like who attacked Ghidorah earlier, and I'm like, I have no idea. All I remember is the head shaking of the Godzillas and the cute reporter girl. That's what I remember from this movie.
Oh, at least you're remembering the important things.
I'm not sure if it says anything about this movie or if it says something about me for that fact.
Caleb should comment on this fisherman and what happens to him. We were all laughing. He does nothing but cooperate.
Yeah. So this fisherman guy, he has found this piece of this jewelry or whatever, and they're questioning him about it at the police station. And
yeah. They like he like totally cooperates, tells them everything. He's like, yeah, no, I just found it floating there. It was just floating in the water. And then they just arrest the guy afterwards. They just like,
hey, you're staying here overnight. Have fun, buddy.
Well,
enjoy yourselves, scum.
And then they punched him in the face.
yeah, they even act friendly to him, and they're like, oh, thank you for your cooperation. You're going to have to spend the night. And he's like, what? Yeah.
You're a suspect now, boy.
Yeah.
So the whole plot is going along that the princess disappeared. She was supposed to arrive in Tokyo, I'm supposing, wherever we're at right now in the film. And she dropped in the water, actually survived from that plane explosion. And this prophet, yeah, exactly. Well, she was held up by alien powers.
Oh, yeah.
The weird noise, the hypnotized noise. Woo! And she survived. She's the strange prophetess woman that's going to become a main character throughout this. And the identifying feature of how you could tell if she was the princess was that she wore the royal bracelet. It's this really flimsy plot device that's like, there's so many other things you could have done, man. A birthmark, a tattoo, which I guess wouldn't really have blended into Japanese culture. She could have, what I think would have worked is if she went in and out of her state of like being all amnesia-like, and she remembered for a bit and then would go back. There's a lot you could do to fix this film, but what it is what it is.
So Dr. Serizawa is, of course, in this film disguised as a detective or something?
I believe he's a detective or a reporter, because the brother, 3 main characters, the sister who's definitely the reporter, the brother's a policeman, which doesn't that make for great films when the 2 main characters are brother and sister and they're constantly teasing each other? That's so much better than 2 leads who are flirting the whole time. No, it's not. I would much rather have a male and a female lead who are kind of, playing back and forth. Instead, we have a brother and sister that are annoyed with each other. It doesn't work well, in my opinion.
Oh, I think it's fine. She's cute, and that's all I care about. I just look at her. I don't care about him.
If you forget that it's her brother, which she keeps reminding her of, because she's like, little sister, then you're kind of like, ugh. It's off-putting. She is attractive.
She's very attractive. Oh crap, what was I going to say? Oh, so I got my list here of differences between the American version and the original Japanese version.
Okay.
So rather than being referred to by his full name, King Ghidorah's name is shortened to Ghidra in the dub. Presumably because it sounds more like Hydra is what it's saying on this list, but I don't know about that.
I failed to pronounce that correctly. The American title for the release of this film, Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster. So we get Ghidorah, we get King Ghidorah thrown around, and there's a third one, Ghidra, almost as confusing as Rodan, right?
The dude in the yellow, he's been in other movies, right?
Oh, yeah. He was the scientist in Mothra versus Godzilla. He was, I believe, a scientist again in the Mothra standalone film. He's usually a scientist, but a main character.
I play scientists.
Yeah.
I play generic scientist man.
Yeah, dude, that's how it was in the studio. Like, the studio system in Japan is just like it was in Hollywood, so you can say it this way. It's how it was in Toho.
And they must have been known actors, like very well known, So it was probably more than likely a draw for audiences to know this is who's in this film.
So Celino Salno, which I believe is the princess, claims to be from Mars in the dub rather than Venus as in the original version.
That just seems to be more of an American thing because, American thought at the time is a lot of science fiction revolved around there could be possibility of life on Mars, colonizing Mars, aliens from Mars. That was kind of science-y, fiction-y, and American science fiction at the time. I think I like Venus better, but it doesn't really matter. But what's your opinion on that one?
Well, knowing that Venus's environment is like super poisonous and terrible.
It's like a gas planet, basically.
Yeah, it's not a gas planet, but yeah, it's what is it? Sulfur or something like that.
It's like a gas
it's bad.
giant. Yeah.
It's bad. It'll kill you. It's not a gas giant. It is not a gas giant.
I don't know.
Gas giant started Jupiter.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So yeah, but I know that there's no possibility of human life on Venus. So, like, if I'm going to buy any of these stories, it has to be Mars. Where you're not going to get, like, burned up if you go.
One funny thing about this film, do you remember this, Caleb? We were laughing about it. It says in the Japanese version, the translation of the Japanese, script, that King Ghidorah, who came from a distant world, he from the people of Venus, because in the Japanese version it's Venus, he destroyed their culture and knowledge and left. So he left the people.
Screw you guys.
He destroyed their dance halls and their libraries, their universities.
You'll never get a culture win. Never.
They're just kind of sitting around bored, hucking rocks at each other. Gosh.
Wish we had some
culture.
Fucking.
Hey, don't be cursing on the Godzilla podcast.
Why not?
We got one strike.
You get one F word per show. So a lot of things were kind of just rearranged in the order that they appeared. The old man whom the princess trades the bracelet with at the police station, and the battles between Godzilla and Rodan as well. The princess originally told King Ghidorah's tale before the monster emerged from the meteorite, and the arrival of the assassins happened at an earlier time
to the bridge
than it did in the Japanese version. So yeah, there's a few like little kind of moving around sort of things in this movie.
Yeah, and it's not so much in sequences or like scenes of the film, but just in what the characters are saying, honestly.
I feel like someone in this company owns like some sort of bus thing, like some sort of public transportation, because there's always people run into buses and like escaping via bus.
They're just the Toho.
I think Toho has like a secondary business where they have like a public transportation unit.
It's how it goes around. It's how they transport the cast and crew, members from place to place.
Yeah, probably. They just bought some buses and they're like, we got to put these to use. Let's do a scene.
We missed the scene because we were talking over it, but there is a scene here where a dude's hat flies off.
Yeah.
Such flimsy.
And then another guy is just like, go get it for money or something like that. And he just goes down and it's a volcano. And he this cliff, he's like, yeah, I'll scale the cliff face for $2.
Yeah.
The guy offers more money and he's like, no, I don't need more money.
That's the whole premise of the situation for the introduction of Rodan, is that a guy's hat flies off. A huge crowd of people are interested in this man's hat. And
yeah. It's like they're on this huge tour looking at this volcano and everyone's freaking out about the hat. It's like everyone has ADD here. And it's like, oh, look at the hat.
A whole crowd of people have ADD.
Oh, hat.
It's so weird. It's like we're in a different world. It's not like we're in the real world.
Exactly.
Anyway.
So Ifukube's score, which I think is pretty stock for Ifukube, but I'm going to get into his score a little bit later. There are some interesting things about it. Unfortunately, a lot of it was replaced with stock music in the American films,
as is per usual.
Not all of
actually.
it. I definitely heard some Ifukube in this version, but
it seems like it keeps the themes of the monsters, like the intro song when it's showing the credits is kept. But then, a lot of it just is switched around to stock. Oh, and we failed to mention, in both the Japanese and the American version, upon the introduction of Rodan, when he flies out of the crater after bursting out of the mountain, uses Godzilla's roar both times.
Oh, yeah,
in the American version, we were like, oh man, they screwed up bad. We're watching the Japanese version. Yeah, they screwed up again.
Yeah, they did it again.
Yeah, I remember hearing that, and I was like, what?
Every one of us was like, wait.
Suddenly he's a freaking mockingbird.
So Mothra is referred to as a male in the dub instead of as a female.
Okay, well, maybe it was male and female twins, like how they emerged and defeated Godzilla. in Mothra vs. Godzilla. And I guess because it's stated in this one, the sisters are talking to the boy on that weird TV show with the comedians. They're like, only one survived. So I guess the male survived. Mm-hmm. He probably ate the female, honestly.
And there were other altered scenes as well. Godzilla's first appearance was altered, apparently. There was a deleted scene where Shindo sees Naoko being dropped off at Dr. Mirai's at their home, explaining why Shindo was asking his mother about his sister having a boyfriend when returning home. That's a good point. I remember that now from the Japanese version.
Oh, yes, because he actually sees that she's dropped off by a male.
Yeah, and a couple other scenes that were kind of...
If anything, that adds a teeny bit more of like characterization to
it connects the dots.
Yeah.
Does she have a boyfriend just randomly?
Because I mean, I want to know the teeniest bit about our main characters, not bare minimum the actions they do to move the story forward.
Yeah, and I know the Peanuts sing twice, I believe, in the Japanese version. And one of those is taken out in the English version,
which is normal for American versions.
Yeah, I don't know how many Japanese songs we're gonna be able to sit through as we white people. I don't know.
Yeah, because I
don't know if we can do that.
They never translate them. They just keep the Japanese in when they have them. So either they shorten them or remove them completely.
This scene is an interesting one. This is the hotel stuff where she just like leaves her in the room and then the assassin guys are coming for her.
Or they're extremely obviously on a set with like a painted on door. That's totally just like a painted on door.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember something about this scene. Going like, oh, this is just like a normal hotel room. Oh, yeah. Someone makes a comment about how this is like a normal hotel room or a cheap hotel room or something like that. And this hotel room, this is like, if this isn't actually a hotel room, this is like a nice hotel room.
Especially for Japan. For Japan.
Yeah, it's roomy, westernized, well lit.
They had to have room to, show off their characters. I also like how the willingness of the hypnotized princess or the amnesia-stricken princess, whatever is actually the cause there.
I do like her willingness. Yeah.
That she just goes along with the girl, with the girl who's protecting her, luckily, because otherwise, man, there was a lot of guys catcalling at her.
Yeah, okay, so this shot here, we cut over to a boat, and then we see like some stuff in the water. It looks like the giant fish. Is that what I'm seeing?
I don't know, but Joe...
We've seen that shot like 6 times, and I'm still not sure. Are those like whales coming out and like jumping through
baby whales?
Because they're supposed to be pretty big, because we're going to see like a monster pop up, right? But like, look at how big the fish are compared to Godzilla. Yeah. They must be whales. They must be like blue whales, like jumping out of the ocean.
Look at Godzilla quickly here. His head, it's a lot longer. Like it's higher. Anyway... The head itself is further up from the body of the suit actor than is going to be in the rest of this.
Looks like Cookie Monster kind of there.
Yeah. So what they use these various Godzilla suits for is Toho would purposely use the suits from the films prior to their newest film, and they would use those ones when he emerges from the water because they didn't want to cause damage to the newer suit.
It's like they're sending off.
Yeah,
the suit.
They just don't want to use their new suit that they're going to be filming the bulk of the scenes where Godzilla's on land and fighting. So it's slightly different than the suit we're going to see. Because you got to understand, that suit that they wanted to reuse for this film was lit on fire in the last film on the head, remember?
Yeah.
The jaw was knocked off, basically not off, but it was very wobbly when he falls into the castle, that they had to film twice because the people who were helping push down the castle from behind it, as Godzilla was supposed to knock it down, they did it too early on the first take. Anyway, there was a lot of damage to that suit, so they had to rebuild at least the head and really do some extensive work. So this is the, we won't really go into this. This is the Mosu Goji 2 suit, which I guess is a fan favorite, and it's going to be used in this film. The Mosu Goji 1 was in the last one, so we'll see.
I actually think I prefer the Mosu Goji 1.
Yeah, the eyes in
Between
this
the
one
two.
From the rebuilt head, they're really weird and foggy. It looks like he's baked. Godzilla looks like he's baked. His eyes are like reddish and he's all foggy, like, ugh. So who knows what Godzilla's smoking underwater or when he comes up on land. I don't know, man. burns a giant crop of
And that's why he
opium.
was chasing after the fish so much.
Falls into it.
Get the munchies. Oh man.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite shots in the film. There's a very cool when the bad dude walks around.
His name's Malmus, I guess.
Yeah. In the wide shot, he's kind of standing over her, and it looks like a Wachowski brothers shot almost. Oh, excuse me, Wachowski sisters.
The Wachowski siblings.
Sorry, no, sisters.
They're both sisters now.
Now, okay. I was aware that they were siblings.
Yeah, we can get into that
That's
later.
new to
They're
me.
still siblings.
Oh, they're still siblings. You can call them siblings, I guess that would be correct. But regardless, like he was standing over her, and just like I don't know, there's something very that composition for that frame, it just looks really good. You got the guys in the background, she's in the chair, kind of in the foreground, and then the really bad guy is moving across, and I just think it looks great. And I stood for a moment and went, that's a really well composed shot.
Exactly.
Which, sometimes you get really well composed shots in Ishiro's work, but most of the time they're kind of looser. He's not always a super constrained filmmaker. He seems to be more loosey goosey with the frame. Otherwise, we wouldn't get like, oh, that shot's out of focus.
Do you happen to know offhand if he used the same DP as director of photography through these films?
Offhand, no, I do not.
Okay, we should look that up because you're right. Some of the shots are great. Like even here where there's 5 people in the shot and it looks fine. I mean, you fit a lot of people in the shot. You see their expressions. It builds in the composure of the shot, like the feeling, and yet it just looks normal. It doesn't looks good.
Yeah, that's actually really while we're standing here, that's also a really good shot. I think what he is good at, and I've seen it before with other crowd shots. I studied some of the frames in Godzilla versus Mothra for a school assignment, and I was also looking at kind of how he staged crowd shots, and sometimes they're really stagey looking, but they always look good. But sometimes the stuff doesn't look as good as well. So like, I guess in this situation, he's in a nice studio and he gets his good direction going.
Yeah. Just this. There's no aforemention of a father, the king, to this princess, and yet he just the main bad guy, Malnus, I guess is his name, never takes his sunglasses off throughout the film. He's kind of out to get the princess because whoever's the ruling party now in this country wants her dead for some reason. Even though she was supposed to be dead from the plane, but she survived, which is impossible. Anyway, he just says to her before he's about to kill her, after he's confirmed this is the princess in the motel room, he's like, this was the blade I killed your father with. And to the whole audience, you're just like, she had a father?
Yeah, what?
He killed her? Okay,
And not any better in the Japanese version?
It's the exact same thing in both.
Yeah.
There's no setup for it, and so there's no payoff since we know nothing. The audience isn't informed of that, and it's like, oh, I guess he killed her. There's no tension, doesn't make him any more evil of a character.
Something I always love to point out in movies, and modern movies are just as bad when it comes to this. Whenever someone flips a light switch in a movie, watch how the light, when we flip a light switch, even if we have like power, energy saving light switches, they flick on as soon as the connection is made, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you flip that thing on. In movies, though, if someone blows out a candle, if someone lights a candle, if someone lights a room with a light switch, watch the delay in the light being turned on. I see this every time. I see a grip behind the camera. Grips are the people who move lighting or who have to move the things that shape the lighting equipment for the film crew. So I see a grip with a switch in his hand, looking at the actress or the actor, ready to switch the light switch, and they go, oh, and film lights, they're not the same type of lights. They don't just bam, they don't just turn on.
Yeah.
So they have to warm up a bit, So every time you see a light switch turn on and off in a movie, you see it just kind of warm in and then warm out. And it is bad in this one. When the twins flip the light switch, it's just it's a really slow turn off, but yet in the next shot the bad guys are like, "Whoa, where'd she go?"
Oh,
So,
to point out.
sorry if I
flaws.
ruined that for you.
Yeah.
Now you're going to see it in every single movie you ever see.
I was going to say, I think the light switch scene is probably somebody's favorite out there. They're like, damn, Joe, why you always got to ruin it?
My light
Joe.
switch scene. Okay, Rodan's gonna swoop in here. It's awesome. Like Godzilla just is a giant monster punching bag in this film, especially. Godzilla doesn't know what the heck's going
Such
on.
a
He hasn't
rager.
faced Rodan, and Rodan just flies in, and it's like supersonic speed. Godzilla doesn't even know what's happening, probably because he's baked. He's very high. Get a little high.
Yeah, this Godzilla, it's kind of sad what they've done with Godzilla in this film.
Yeah, this is the beginning of the
beginning of the
sadness.
end. You're right. Just how blundering he is. I guess you're right. The eyes match.
Yeah.
Eyes match. You know the soul by the eyes. Or I don't know. There's a phrase in there somewhere. Godzilla can't do anything in this movie.
Well, it was pointed out in some of these facts I read, he doesn't even use his atomic breath once against Ghidorah. He does against Rodan. So he's holding back. Godzilla's holding some surprises in his back pocket. He's smart. He's smart. He's appearing stupid. It's a battle, a tactic, a war tactic, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
He's got to appear dumb so he can surprise them, so catch him off guard. They won't be using their full extent of their powers, and then he just pummels them, finishes them off. I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to justify Godzilla here because he's my man. I like
he's so
Godzilla.
blundering. Like, what was Eiji Tsuburaya or Shiro Honda or whoever choreographed the fight scenes? What were they thinking?
Were they choreographed? It makes him hard to root for.
That's a good question.
It makes him hard to root for when you're like, I believe this is just
I don't
a
even know if I
theory.
root for him or against him. He was a bad guy before this. I mean, come on.
Oh yeah, you were rooting for humans, I guess, you know, if you like the main character, but I was rooting to see more destruction as much as we could. But yeah, Godzilla's a dummy.
What about the welders? Is that what you're voting for over there?
The welders.
The welder.
Yeah,
Guys like welding and then like grinding away the weld on the other side.
all the sparklers on the
all the
side of
sparks.
so
Clean that weld.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
They look like sparklers to me. I don't know.
Like a billion of them.
Yeah. Especially, okay, this looks awesome. It's always,
yeah.
the introduction of Ghidorah is always spectacular. He comes up in flames. The flames like form to make Ghidorah. You can see his presence before he actually forms. And you are just great special effects. Fantastic.
And a good zoom just to pop off the top of the shot. That is one of the best introductions ever.
Oh yeah,
It's
love
godlike. It's freaking awesome.
the one that I am very familiar with. The introduction of, you know what? We're going to talk about that in a minute because we got to talk about this scene right here. This is the final appearance of Takashi Shimura in a Godzilla film. He was Joe's favorite paleontologist in Gojira.
World's worst paleontologist.
But he's been in several of these Godzilla films. He was a mainstay, staple in Kurosawa films, for which he's a great actor.
He was in
Really.
like a million Kurosawa films.
Okay, here's a fact about him, and we just have to say it because he's great. In 1937, between 1937 and 1942, Takashi Shimura, I believe is his name, he appeared in nearly 100 films. In a 5-year span, 100 films. And in a few films, he was a lead, actor, main character, a prolific actor, and really a good one. He makes the believability of these, the human scenes in these films just better. Even if the script might be a little off, the whole story might be science fiction-y to the extreme of believability. He brings a grounding to it, and he has a great presence on screen, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, he's a serious actor in these movies.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that his character thinks that the Earth is, I don't know,
20,000 years old
what it
or
was. It was
something
like
weird.
the T-Rex was 2 million years old or something. It was something stupid, and it's like, I don't know. Yeah, he definitely brings weight in this film. Or any of the films he's in, I think just because he's there. Like, what would be the equivalent of that? If like, oh man, who played Lincoln? Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis.
If Daniel Day-Lewis just like showed up in Spider-Man, it would be like, whoa.
someone who's like a great method actor, someone
you'd be
who's
like,
a
"Jeez."
well-respected actor that brings weight to the story. Yeah, in like a superhero film.
I think him and Mifune, both of them are used in a lot of Kurosawa films.
No, Mifune
they're
is spectacular.
Generally, in the West, I don't know how Japan feels about them, but in the West, they're generally considered Japan's greatest actors ever.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So, again, Takashi Shimura.
Takashi Shimura, yeah. Star of Seven Samurai. I don't know how many times I have to mention that film until you guys watch it.
I still need to. Yeah. I would, but someone's borrowing it from me. Okay.
Wait, you guys as in the listeners, or?
Everyone.
You guys.
Okay.
Everybody should watch
it.
Kurosawa films, especially Seven Samurai. Okay. We were all in both versions, but especially the American version upon viewing these films. Up to this point, this is like Ghidorah's destruction introduction. He's emerged, and now he's about to wreak havoc on what I assume is Tokyo. He just blows away the top of the
he doesn't
palace.
even have to do anything. He just flies by. And it's just shredded.
You're right. He doesn't have to do anything. And yet when he starts blasting away with his gravity rays or whatever they're called, they're not. He was originally supposed to breathe fire from 3 heads, much akin to, like, I would assume Godzilla's atomic breath, but probably fiery, since, it would make more sense than the lightning bolts, gravity rays, whatever he shoots out, because he forms from fire. So if he shot fire out, it would be like, oh, that makes sense. Anyway, we're watching the American version. We're all kind of making fun of it, like, oh man, Godzilla just
painted
got
trees in the
knocked
foreground, by the way.
down. But then we all just went quiet as the Ghidorah destruction happened, because it was like, oh gosh. What we'd seen so far was Rodan and Mothra have these wind attacks that just knock cars everywhere, blow buildings down, blow roofs, blow tiles off roofs, blow billboards down, and it looks good. And Godzilla has the stomping that's setting everything on fire. Ghidorah has both of those elements contained in himself to the max, to like 11. And Ghidorah wrecks this city.
I can destroy shit.
He doesn't even land. Oh, and we were all like, whoa, he just leveled that town, that city.
So the initial idea for Ghidorah came from Tomoyuki Tanaka, who was the creator of Godzilla. He's the one who outlined the first screenplay for the original Godzilla.
Okay.
Apparently his inspiration came from an illustration of the Hydra in a book about Greek mythology, and also came from a thing called the Orochi of Japanese folklore.
So this is like the inspiration for Ghidorah, like his design?
Ghidorah, yeah.
Okay.
Tanaka was enamored with the idea of Godzilla kind of fighting a multi-headed serpent.
Yeah.
But they found that 7 to 8 heads, which was the original thing, they thought that was going to be excessive, so they brought it down to 3.
And they had problems enough with the suit in this film. It's akin to like the problems they had with Mothra in the original film. I wasn't able to see it on film, but reading about goofs of the film, apparently they had problems with the Mothra, the larva, and the final form, its moth form. What they kept for the film itself, what they cut together worked, but the actor in the suit, the Ghidorah suit, was having a lot of issues. Couldn't really move because he's got 3 puppeted heads and
no arms.
No arms, 2 puppeted tails. When he's flying,
Oh boy, that would be claustrophobic to just be in that suit with no arm movement.
it doesn't take a stretch of the imagination to look at the body of King Ghidorah and see that the actor's arms are just stuffed against his body, and he's how hot it must get in those suits. I heard in the Godzilla suits alone, they were just pouring out buckets of sweat. They could only do so many scenes at a time before they had to give the actor a break, and he just couldn't move very far because just standing there alone was enough for the actor to probably pass out pretty quickly. But to be moving, even at the speed they were, because all of these scenes with the monsters, of course, are under cranked, so they're sped up a little bit, and so the actors are moving at normal speed, not what we're seeing. But man, you got to have high endurance to be a suit actor.
So yeah, the suit actor that you're talking about that had problems with his movement, his name was Shoichi Hirose, and him and Eiji Tsuburaya, the special effects director, apparently had a falling out because of his his inability to play Ghidorah.
He had a falling out with who?
with Eiji Tsuburaya.
Oh, the effects director,
Yeah,
really?
and so King Ghidorah, who also appears in Invasion of the Astro Monster, the next Godzilla film, was instead played by Susumu Utsumi, because I guess Eiji Tsuburaya didn't want Hirose playing Ghidorah anymore.
Well, he was Anguirus in Godzilla Raids Again. He was King Kong in King Kong versus Godzilla for the scenes where the larva form
He's basically
is a suit
the
actor.
second fiddle guy. He's
Always.
yeah.
I wonder if he's going to make a reappearance in these films if he had a falling out. We'll have to see in future films. That's very interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So apparently the initial suit, I know you found a picture that was like rainbow colored of Ghidorah.
He's purple all over except for the under part of his neck, which is gold, and the wings are rainbow colored.
Yeah.
So it's like very fantasy space monster, like
Yeah,
way out there.
I don't know at what process that picture came into being, but apparently the original Ghidorah design was green.
I was thinking like Ghidorah and the Technicolored wingsuit or something like that.
And
a
of
musical.
course, it was eventually turned to gold, which is awesome. I think gold is the perfect color
It's
for
much
King
more
Ghidorah.
streamlined. You don't have to detract from the design of the monster itself because it's a giant winged, 3-headed, 2-tailed monster with horns on its head.
So it's awesome.
That's enough. You don't have to make it all colorful.
Well, I think it's awesome for shredding this town. Although the
Seriously.
tower is like way tougher than everything else. Apparently.
And that alone, because of course they added in the effects of the gravity rays that are blasting the town to pieces later, just to be one of the special effects people and blowing up everything. Because really, looking at this, like that building just
They also had to build
exploded.
everything too. Let's be clear about
Yeah.
their job.
I
Yes,
think they love
exactly.
it. They probably love blowing it up.
Hundreds of man hours easy
Because
into
they
some
hate
of these
building
sets.
it.
And
So
most of them-
tedious. Can't wait.
Well, and you have to go into it with the mindset, I'm building this to be destroyed. But at the same time, they have to pay attention to so much detail that it's not replicated from film to film. They have to, it's actually in some of the behind the scenes stuff where they talk about how the special effects people working on it walk around and really try to take in the surroundings that they see to make very different sets. Yeah, anyway.
That's cool. So in our Bible, it actually says that Ghidorah's design might have been inspired by another flying dragon movie, 1956
Really?
Russian film called Leah Moromets, which was later released in America as The Sword and the Dragon. In that film, a dragon named Gorinich flies slowly around and breathes flamethrower fire only after it has landed, at which point it essentially immobile and dispatched with relative ease, it says. But I would like to see this other monster and see how close it compares.
Well,
A
we're
Russian monster film. I've never even...
That's actually they're doing a Russian superhero film soonish anyway. Yeah, they whether they were copying what Toho was doing, well, I don't know. Well, King Ghidorah is going to be coming in the next film, as we've said, so we'll have time to look that up and see. Oh man, these close-ups of the faces of Rodan and Godzilla just screaming at each other. Godzilla's eyes kind of whoop 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 going back
This
and forth.
film was kind of sloppily edited. I'm going to say it right now. Like, during the fight scenes, like, it's a little too much. Like, we just saw 2 close-ups of Rodan and Godzilla looks like a dork already. Then his
Yeah.
eyes are, like, moving from side to side for, like, 12 years. And it's like, why didn't you cut? Like, why?
It's all with the pacing, the length that
There's like a million quick cuts in Godzilla versus Mothra, and in this film, they're like, just let it go.
let it go on. Not as bad though as, let's say, at least how I remember Godzilla Raids Again or Gigantus the Fire Monster. Okay,
So
we're back to the human scenes.
I love how the old man doctor here is gonna like send the other dude away for a second. He's like, hey, I need you to go go check on something down there.
Yeah, he's got the princess laying on the bed.
Yeah, for some reason naked. I don't know why she would need to be, but
Yeah, that's a good point.
I would make her naked.
reasons.
But
Very specific doctor prescribed reasons.
yeah, I must
right.
check the oil, as they say.
Oh, what? What in the world?
And we're moving on.
Don't worry about it.
What's funny about this again, plot, it's not that we're looking for things wrong with the film. They're just so blatant that it's like it can't be missed. Well, Joe, you want to talk about?
Yes, I do want to talk about this. So she's strapped to this table thing, and they're going to do some like electroshock therapy on the princess to like get her brain to work. I don't know. That's what they're
Jumpstart
doing.
her brain like a car.
So the controls to the electroshock shock therapy machine, at least the power that the controls put out, are in another room.
Yeah, nowhere near the person on the
nowhere
bed.
near the person.
To make it very
Safety
convenient.
concern number one.
Yes.
And it like goes to like 9,000.
Safety concern number two.
It doesn't go over 9,000.
Yeah. So there is a setting on this machine that can kill a person easily.
Yeah, I think the doctor does like executions on the weekend for extra money.
He works for like the Yakuza.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like the hero like goes and sets it at the right, or the doctor or whoever, he sets it at the right number, and then the bad guys come in and they're like, we're gonna kill the shit out of
hey,
her.
remember how this guy has this 9 million volt thing? Let's just turn this up.
And then they turn the thing up all the way. And it's supposed to kill, like, who makes this thing able to kill someone? Like, who's like, well,
Plus, how do they know? How do they know this thing is so OP that it's just gonna roast this chick like instantaneously?
We got to say the whole reason that the bad guys are even here at this mountainside doctor's whatever retreat where he's taking care of this amnesiac princess. The whole reason the bad guys know he's here, if I'm not getting this the continuity here wrong, or the way that the story unfolds, is that the whole proceedings of what's happening with Godzilla appearing on land, and for some reason they want to call
it
Mothra.
at 5,000. It can go all the way up to or 500 and go all the way up to 3, and I think it's like 3,000 volts.
But the political proceedings that are going on are televised, and the policeman who knows that the princess has assassins after her, he tells over the television in this political proceeding, what are we going to do with Godzilla? We got to call Mothra. So they show the little Shobijin, the fairies, and the policeman who knows that she's got assassins after her goes, this is exactly where she's at. That's broadcast on TV. So the assassins, of course, are tuning in like all of Japan are, and they're like, oh, that's where she is. Yeah, let's go kill her.
Yeah, you'd think they'd like use that as like a trap. That's what I'd do. Just have the police there.
Yeah, you would think. Well, I would think that's what the policeman, would be doing if he had brains. Whatever. We always have a
this is where
scene.
Godzilla gets a little rocked here.
Rodan.
You're coming with me, boy.
Rodan takes Godzilla from behind.
Yeah.
Godzilla has been taken from behind
It's
by
just
King
how
Kong.
it sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the way the shot's set up. It doesn't show their lower torsos. Rodan's behind Godzilla.
Everyone
moving
wants a
back
piece
and
of that
forth.
Godzilla
Godzilla's flailing
booty.
his arms.
I
Like,
can't imagine no one on the set went like,
There was probably a couple of the crew members. Godzilla just crushed a giant electrical tower with his crotch.
That thing, if he was angled a little more,
would have went straight up.
it could have been way worse for old Godzilla.
I don't know.
Why does this always happen?
All I can say is I hope that there wasn't a suit actor in it that time.
Yeah. So the princess is saved. The princess is saved by a power outage caused by the monsters.
Caused by
So
Godzilla's
a Deus
genitalia.
Ex Godzilla. Deus Ex Machina. A la
The
Godzilla.
monster in the there'd be like a Mecha Godzilla. Deus Ex Mecha Godzilla. I don't know.
It's very convenient.
That's one of the actual like. There's a moment of comedy there, slapstick comedy, where he like takes a wrench, and I think like the movie stereotype is that he takes a wrench, hits the guy in the back of the head, and he passes out. But the dude actually just hits the guy, and the guy's like, "Ow!"
And he slowly walks away. A trained like assassin guy drops his gun and is like, "Ow, ow, ow!" And you're like, "Yeah, this is pretty cartoony."
Sick of this job.
Gosh, how much am I getting paid again? Totally not worth it.
She wasn't even zapped by any electricity yet. She's like, carry me.
Yeah.
Well, she's been all weird and
She's been all weird.
no, yeah,
Yeah, you're right. She's been all weird. That's enough.
That's it. That's all you got to say.
That's all you gotta say.
So
I've been all weird. I'm going to need you to carry me today.
I'm gonna need some electroshock therapy. Okay, her as one of the main people in this film, it's disturbing in the American version, for me at least. She always talks in a very hypnotic monotone voice, and she has a lot of lines in this film. She
Yes,
repeats
Mr.
herself
Bond.
over and over. I'll do whatever you want, Mr. Bond. But yes, it's like, oh man, that got annoying pretty quick. Because at first it's like, oh, it's ominous. She's saying Rodan's going to come. She's saying that King Ghidorah will emerge, and it's all like the volcano will explode. All this terrible tragedy. She keeps repeating it. She keeps talking in that voice. After a while, you're like, okay, all right, you don't need to talk. Yeah, but anyway, we're getting to the fight here.
There's a
Good
fight
Lord.
here between Rodan and Godzilla.
Godzilla
like
suplexes Rodan, lifts him up, crashes in between, and it's great.
I want to mention a shot earlier. There was Rodan was like kissing Godzilla, and then Godzilla like flicks him off. And then Rodan comes up behind him on his tail. There's a unconnected shot with the tail going up, and then there's another shot where Rodan's
That's a horror shot right
Godzilla's
there.
tail is up, right? And then Rodan's back just like goes in two without having been connected whatsoever with the tail, and then Rodan falls to the ground. It's kind of it's a poorly edited.
He's old man
shot.
Rodan. He like pulled his back a little bit and had to just collapse.
This is.
Well, that
We
and
saw good fighting before this.
Yeah.
Rodan, in my opinion, we've discussed this before. It was in the forums, which are now new forums, by the way. They've been cleared out and streamlined. But we had a discussion on what was a real animal and what was like a mutated monster that can take more damage. Okay, when Godzilla uses his atomic breath on King Kong and King Kong versus Godzilla, King Kong is like, oh crap, and like walks away from it because it sets him on fire, burns his fur, and he kind of has to think up a new strategy to like outsmart Godzilla, right? Okay. It's interesting. It's an interesting fight-ish, better choreographed. Then we get this one, and Godzilla just straight up atomic breath Rodan to his face. It just barely phased him. Kind of, he walked back a little bit like, ouch. But he's certainly not. Yeah.
Something I didn't realize until I was reading this stuff.
Yeah.
Godzilla never uses his atomic breath on King Ghidorah in this movie.
Yeah, that's the whole point
It's
I made
like-
about him holding
Yeah,
back.
you mentioned that earlier.
He's got to because,
I think he just wanted everybody else to do the fighting for him. He saw that guy and he was like, no, I'm not helping you. And everyone's like, oh, come on, help us out. Nope. I saw that. I don't want any of that.
as king of monsters, I order my peasant underlings. Now he's like, I'll let him kill Mothra, let him kill Rodan, no skin off my back, and then when he's tired, when he's tuckered out, I'm gonna come in, swoop in, take the win.
There's like a 20-minute build-up to the 20-minute scene,
yeah.
so I'm going to give it some time before we have to talk about it. I got two more notes here about this film as far as the background of the film is concerned. The dude who plays the assassin, the chief assassin guy who always wears sunglasses, we called him Agent. You called him Agent Smith? Someone called him Agent Smith.
is Malmus.
Yeah, his name is Malmus. I'm reading it here. Hisayo Ito plays him, right? And the author of our Bible says he played him pretty well, which I think he did. Yeah,
He
It's
wasn't supposed
regular cheesy '60s bad guy.
to. Yeah, and it wasn't supposed to be that actor. That's what I read. They wanted someone else.
It wasn't. It was supposed to be Yoshio Tsuchiya, and apparently that actor had already bought the sunglasses for the role. But obligations on.
Real quick, the hot potato.
Oh my god!
There's like a 40-second at least, if not
Keep
a
it going,
minute
guys,
and
keep
a
going.
half of
High score.
Rodan and
High score.
Godzilla knocking a rock back and forth.
Oh, you failed.
Hot potato, hot potato. And Mothra was like, really? Watching him do this?
Now he's going to punish him for it. You failed me.
So back to
Take
the
the seed.
back to the facts. Back to the facts.
Okay, so the dude had already bought the sunglasses, but obligations on a freaking masterpiece of a movie. I'm sorry, I bring him up again. A film called Redbeard kept him occupied.
Is that a Kurosawa?
It is another Kurosawa movie.
All right.
It's probably the last great Toho Kurosawa movie. Kurosawa had like 10 years of pain in the 70s, and he made 2 movies in the 70s and 2 movies in the 80s.
Yeah.
And although one of the Dersu Uzala was probably his great film from the 70s, it's a Russian film. It's really hard to get a hold of.
Desuzala?
Dersu Uzala.
Desu, okay.
Dersu! I know how to say it because of that line.
Let's get cultured here. Let's make sure we
yeah.
pronounce that right.
And then in the 80s, he made 2 masterpieces back to back. Well, I say back to back. They were like 5 years in between. But he made, he basically, with his first film in the 70s, which is a giant Technicolor weird movie called Dodeskaden. He tanked at the box office, and his career with Toho was done.
Okay.
After that, despite doing like 30 years of hits or whatever.
We got to say really quick, Honda and Kurosawa had a couple collaborations, like 5 to 7 of them. So that's a tie-in to Honda.
Well, you say collaboration, but he was an assistant director, which means that he was, at least in the American film. I mean, it could be different for Japanese, and certainly if you know, let me know. But in American film, an assistant director is basically the set manager.
Oh.
So he's like, hey, guys, so we got 30 minutes. You got to get the shot done before we move on to the next setup. How many setups we got? We got to get out of here before 11 or else you're going to get, overtime. He's that guy.
That's not that much, then.
Everybody hates.
Yeah.
But, I mean, assistant director might have meant something different in Japan. It could have been like a director trainee or something like that. I've heard that before, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
So what just happened in the film was that Mothra convinced Rodan and Godzilla to team up against Ghidorah. They were both fighting. He stopped him by spraying him with his larval string. It's a string shot for those Pokemon fans. But yeah, they just are like, nope, not having it. Rodan and Godzilla are like, no, why do we want to help the humans? They hate us. We destroy. And yet Mothra convinces them. I really think that it's just that Godzilla's defending his pride. Because he's the king of monsters.
Not only do we have a really stupid fight scene with Rodan and Godzilla, which is really bad, but then we also have to have the Godzilla and Rodan arguing.
Yeah.
Like children.
At least they don't have actual voices.
And Mothra being like, come on, guys.
Come on,
we gotta save the world or else King Ghidorah is gonna take all their knowledge and culture.
What I don't get is why Godzilla doesn't have more of a hatred for Mothra at this point, because Mothra defeated him at the end of Mothra versus Godzilla. Yeah, he's gonna knock over that like temple entrance.
I feel kind of sad for King Ghidorah because, unlike you, Drew, I don't feel that positively about this film.
I convinced myself otherwise, but for 90% of the time thinking about this film, I don't like it.
I feel bad because King Ghidorah is my favorite thing that Godzilla has ever fought, ever. He's in other movies, but gosh, him in this is great, but this is his first movie that he's in the series, and it's kind of lame.
Bad start.
I need to have you guys guess, because this is just going to be funny. You say it's not that good, and I don't think so either. I've convinced myself otherwise. What do you think for this film? What do you think is its Rotten Tomatoes score?
Just as of right now.
27.
No, dude.
60.
All right. Just, I'm pulling it up right now. It is, drumroll. 80%.
80%. No.
The Rotten Tomatoes overall, which is an aggregate.
Let me see.
That's
It's
critic
an
score.
aggregate of... It's all critics, users, 80% for Ghidorah.
Oh, I must not have
it's
looked at this
high.
one.
I saw that before.
It's
I saw
high.
the IMDb score as well, which
That's
was like it was like a 6
6.7.
point, something. And I'm like, that's too high for this movie. Like I can't be the only one in thinking this is one of the worst Godzilla movies I've seen. I mean, it gets worse. It gets way worse.
Yeah, this part right here is just ridiculous.
They're still talking, by the way. The monsters are still debating.
Yeah,
they've
and
been
now
debating for the last 10 freaking minutes, and then we have to see Mothra.
I'm just gonna go do it myself, dude.
Slowly make his way over to King Ghidorah.
And again, it makes no sense to me why Godzilla would feel for Mothra. Godzilla has pride. He's the king of the kaiju. He's not going to come and save Mothra. I'm sorry, he's not. Mothra is like, okay, you guys don't want to help me fight King Ghidorah? I'm going to go up against him alone. And then they watch him crawl away and fight against King Ghidorah. He gets beat mercilessly. He gets flung around like it's nothing. And the reactions of the human characters are like, oh, as Mothra's flying everywhere. So you assume what's going through Rodan and Godzilla's mind is, all right, we'll go help him. It's a little far-fetched.
This is something interesting about this movie. It is a first. Not only did it make Godzilla like full-time hero, right? I mean, he's
not technically in this film, but definitely in the next ones.
It's that, and it's also more campy than usual. So not only was it first in that sort of way with these kaiju movies, especially the Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
but it was also a first in another way with these new screenwriters who were hired for this movie.
Okay.
The human characters in this film, they have their own drama that is disconnected with the monsters. And before this, in the Godzilla films,
Yeah.
all the drama with the human characters revolves around the monsters.
Yeah,
And so now they're using parallel storytelling. This was talked about on the commentary to the DVD, which is a really great commentary as well as ours.
on this version, the classic media version of Ghidorah the
And it
Three-Headed
talks about it.
Monster.
It's like the first time in the Godzilla series that happened, where the human characters had a parallel storytelling instead of one that was interconnected until we get to the end.
So they're told side by side instead of having connections between the two, like the monster storyline and
the human
Okay, I can
drama
see that.
all deals with this missing princess.
Ooh.
And
Yes, that's true. And it really doesn't have a connection. Like
not
I said,
really. I
it's
mean,
all-
Ghidorah might be the UFO or whatever, but
It's all vague and
Otherwise-
ambiguous whether there actually are aliens or not, and they don't show up in this film. That's true.
vaguely connected.
Barely, yes.
Which, I mean, I actually think the human conflict in this is more interesting than the monsters, except when King Ghidorah is actually in the shot.
When King Ghidorah shows up, this movie is like stops you in your tracks, and you're like, "Ooh,
Yeah,
this
he
is
does look pretty awesome.
in every shot of him. Like his
Get back.
the sculpting on even like Godzilla's suit, like his scales or whatever he is, it looks okay. Rodan looks okay. With Ghidorah, he has individual spikes along all his necks. You see the individual scales.
It's a great suit.
And this was the first suit. The only difference that I'm aware of or remember from these suits, the King Ghidorah version we see here and every subsequent one, apparently he's not going to have ears in the next ones like Godzilla doesn't have prior to like the earliest Godzilla films, because it's just, they're streamlining the suit. And really, they had so many problems with the puppetry and the movement of the actor in Ghidorah's suit. So they simplified it slightly. It's barely noticeable, but it's something to note. Also, this is the first movie where Godzilla is not defeated or killed by the end. The one that's a fact, quotation marks. But what would Joe or Caleb, did you see King Kong versus Godzilla with us?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then you can both answer this question. Was it left ambiguous as to whether Godzilla was defeated at the end of that? What's your opinions on that one?
It looked like he lost. He at least lost the
He
fight.
lost the fight, and it seemed like he just fell into the water and just kind of like, I'll just stay here.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's
Okay.
defeat. So.
I saw it as more of a tie, but I guess you're right, because we didn't see Godzilla leave.
Two entered, one left.
It was shown that King Kong was swimming away. And
Yeah.
you're right, Godzilla kind of just disappeared.
Yeah,
It
it'd be
wasn't
great
shown.
though if King Kong was like, if the end came up and King Kong was like walking into the horizon, and then suddenly
He just, like, plunges
the
under.
end symbol just like erases as like King Kong is like dragged underwater.
Yeah.
See, like I just made that movie like 12 times better.
And then like bubbling,
did?
and then Carnage just bubbles up.
Like blood.
Yeah.
and then like
Right.
Godzilla
And it says,
yeah.
what comes up is the end, and then like a question mark. Dun, dun, dun.
Should have been us.
Should have
There you
been.
go.
But like, yeah, and also another thing of note to backstory to all this, we know that Godzilla is unequivocally killed, the original Godzilla from the first film.
Oh, yeah.
And it's stated in at
He
least,
did.
I don't think they mention it full out in the dialogue in the Gigantus, the Fire Monster, the American version of Godzilla Raids Again, the second Godzilla film. But definitely in the Japanese version, they say, it got to be a different Godzilla. They say, so really, the first Godzilla's gone. He's killed. So they talk about this Godzilla we're seeing now is a second one. This has got to be a third Rodan, because the other two were dead.
Oh yeah. Oh, the other two Rodan,
They
not there.
burned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you just start wondering. You're like, at least with Godzilla, apparently there's tons of Godzilla, I suppose, underwater.
I think there's just the two.
All right, but what about Rodan? Are there Rodan eggs scattered under volcanoes throughout the earth? At least in Japan. I mean, I don't
Godzilla
think
just got zapped in the tummy.
I don't think that they've shown the crotch. a goof is that the killing, the death of Malnus, our main baddie here. You tell it, Joe. I can't.
All right, so he's trying to assassinate the princess from across the cliff, but the monsters are fighting up above, right? And then suddenly there's a giant rock slide, and the dude is like looking up at all these rocks fall, giant foam rocks, by the way, from a set. They're falling down on him, and then this one that looks like Gumby like comes,
giant moon
he like
rock.
catches it, and then
Yeah.
he goes off balance and
he, like-
falls backwards.
He like pushes himself off, jumps off backwards as he's holding the phone.
I wonder if that was like direction. If Honda was like, no, it'd be great if you like caught one and it like made you go off balance and you fell backwards. But like, it looks like he's like trying to catch it and he's like, whoa. Like, I don't know. It's corny and it's funny.
Caleb, did you watch King Kong Escapes with us?
And there's no weight to it as well. So he just grabs it.
I don't know.
Well, anyway, Joe, then what do you think is worse? Is the catching of the foam rock and catapulting himself off the cliff to his own death worse than in King Kong Escapes when the secondary character has the like rubber crocodile that he's got by the tail and he's like, whoo, whoo, woo, as he's, like,
I saw
spinning him
that.
around?
Yeah.
That
was
worse?
ridiculous.
That's worse. Yeah, the rubber crocodile is way worse.
It's like, oh.
Should have been cut
it off.
entirely. Should have been cut entirely.
There's one more thing that I have to mention here.
Have to.
Yeah. Ifukube's score. I'm not sure if they're playing it right now in the English edition. We have to have the sound kind of low for these commentaries. But in the Japanese edition, I guess that he kind of has his themes for each of the monsters. What's interesting about King Ghidorah's themes is that the instruments used, brass instruments, reflect his color. Like,
oh, that's interesting.
He's a giant, like, golden brass-looking monster, right? Huh. And so all the instruments used in his theme are brass. All the instruments used, at least the primary instruments used in Mothra's themes, are violin, because she's like the voice of reason. Like, the violin is supposed to sound like
beautiful,
a human being voice, right? And then Rodin's, I guess there's more woodwind instruments, but he has really brassy scores nonetheless. But yeah, it's all brass for Ghidorah.
And
so I thought that was kind of cool. So Ifukube was like, "Oh, he's gold, so I'm going to use all the gold instruments."
Clever.
It is actually very clever.
Then for Godzilla, it's just low end, very bassy.
Yeah.
Looks like he's serving him there.
Slow. How perfectly then those scores, the themes to the monsters typify the monsters themselves, because it's slow, lumbering, I would say, for Godzilla's theme.
Mm-hmm.
Bum, bum, bum.
He's a smart composer.
Da-na-na-na. Oh, very. And it makes these films. It helps so much because whether consciously or not, you're identifying that with the monsters, and it makes them even more than they are when they show up cinematically.
Mothra on the back of the Rodan. Mothra hasn't sprouted wings yet, I guess.
And then Godzilla just taking him from behind there.
Yeah, in a way that is PG, yes.
Yes, very PG.
This film apparently had an attendance of, in its original release, of 4,320,000 people. Which is actually really good. It grossed about 210 billion yen in Japan, which in today's standards, I think is about, let me look at this. It's about 2 million, which is pretty good for back then. The theatrical reissue that a few years later, 1971, it sold another 1 million tickets. So, like, the film did okay, I guess.
A lot of the films we've seen so far, I believe it was Mothra Standalone and Mothra vs. Godzilla, even upon their reissues in theaters, they still sell tickets, like years later.
Yeah. And then the U.S. version of the film rentals added up to about $1,300,000. Wow. So there's no like estimate on like how much they made. Sometimes with distribution, especially foreign distribution, we are foreign distribution.
Yeah.
In the case of this film, sometimes it's not really. The distributors just get the rights to it, and whatever they get is what the studio gets, or whatever they give, and then
money.
Distribution makes money on themselves, and apparently that's how much the distribution company made. $1,300,000. By the way, after this, Toho is going to specifically they're going to do more in-house, because by this time they were kind of like, they were betting on that extra $1 million coming in.
I mean, they got to have money enough to fund the next film.
They started doing in-house sort of localization for the films after this. So instead of having people butcher films, they just did it in-house.
You're talking about localization for distribution to other
for English-speaking territories at least.
That had to make them so much more streamlined, like just more in line of what they would want to show to the world.
And later on, as in King Kong Escapes, by the way, that's another example of that.
Yeah.
If they're going to cast any Caucasian actors, they're shipped over to Japan, apparently.
Well, or found in Japan itself, which was in the case of Linda Miller. She was a model there. And, they just were like, really, they just needed a good-looking female person. She wasn't an actress. And, she just happened to be there. And caught that role.
Yeah. So, keep that in mind. So the film's going out from this up until the 80s again, up until 1984. And I think there's a Godzilla film, and it might be the next one. I can't really remember. There's a Godzilla film where there's like spacemen and there's a white dude. And
it may be in the next one.
It may be quite different from the original, but we'll have to double check. If it's not that different, once again, we'll only have one commentary. But this is the end of the film right here, Drew.
I'm just putting this out here. When can people expect our next one? 2 weeks?
I don't know. We'll discuss that after the movie is officially ended.
No problem. It's summertime. We got our obligations.
Yeah, and this scene, I noted this to you before. It's the princess and then the one reporter dude, or at least the brother of the reporter woman. They have this moment where she's like, I have to go out with the rest of that. At least this seems like they lock eyes for a second.
Oh, they are in love.
She has to go off. Yeah, which I didn't even get an inkling of through the rest of the movie.
Okay, well, obviously the policeman cares for her. She can't care for him because she's all amnesiac. But it's psychologically speaking, it's a bad love story because let's Back to the Future. Before Marty McFly goes back and changes the past with his mother and father,
Sure.
Whatever the syndrome is of the nurses falling in love with their patients, that's what we get from this policeman and her. He's just taking care of her, falls for her. Obviously, she's beautiful, but that's how he develops feelings for her. So I'm glad they don't end up with each other because it's not a good romance.
See, what it reminded me of was the end of Roman Holiday, where Audrey Hepburn and Atticus Finch, I can't remember the actors, Gregory Peck.
Yeah.
They just acknowledge each other and they act like professional, and you're like, oh, she has to go off and be a princess and he has to be what he's doing. I'm like, that's the exact same ending. The ending is almost exactly the same, but in this movie, it makes no sense.
It's like a small footnote.
They're like, I really like that part.
Happened.
Let's just put that in. Beautiful.
That sounds good.
All right, so that is the end of our Ghidorah, the three-headed monster commentary. I want to thank Schweiss for coming on with us for this commentary.
Yeah, I want to hear, because Caleb, he hasn't seen a lot of these films. What was your estimation of this film overall? What did you think of it?
I don't know. It was all right.
Yeah, this is more of a film that I wouldn't recommend to my friends who are not really into Godzilla.
There's a bunch of parts that are really awkward, and the part with them debating back and forth whether or not they're going to help is really dumb. I don't think that needs to exist for more than 3 seconds. There's some weird lip syncing with the little fairy chicks that I thought was really annoying, and it was actually, like you said, it was hard to understand what they were saying. Yes.
Luckily, those problems are eliminated in the Japanese version. Unfortunately, the American version is easier to get. So yeah, and anything else?
There was the special effects were good.
Yeah.
Not the best ones I've seen, but pretty good though.
If you separate choreography from special effects hold up. Choreography.
No, the choreography is horrible compared to some of the other ones that I've watched, and I think some of them have been older too.
Yeah.
And they've had better
all
fight
of them
scenes.
Except for King Kong Escape so far have been older than this one.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know.
I know at some point we're going to get to the cheap stuff, so they're going to start recycling actual shots,
the last
footage
one
from previous movies.
Oh, okay. Well, the last movie I watched with you guys and we did a commentary on, they recycled shots from that movie, over and over again. And thankfully, this one didn't really do that that I noticed.
Yeah, it's recycling shots from previous films, like people escaping, military attacks.
Oh no, I just meant like
Godzilla itself.
The scene where they're chasing what was the last one we watched? Was it Rodan?
Yeah, Rodan.
Yeah.
Where they're chasing the Rodan and shooting at him. We see that same shot like 7 times, and like a bunch of different pilots getting blown up, and it's like.
It's the cheap B-movie effect of this is how many missiles are being shot at him, say, for instance, and it's like they use the same clip.
Yeah, and like the same pilot, and then they show another pilot die, and then like they show another pilot doing the same shots.
It's modern art.
And I think this one's probably better than that one.
Wow, really?
I think so,
I do not think this movie is as good as Rodan.
Japanese or American version?
I didn't watch the Japanese. I watched the American one.
Really? Because I really like the Japanese version of Rodan.
No, that's what I'm saying is Rodan's better.
Okay, you're saying it's better. Good.
Yeah,
because I would agree.
Yeah, I don't. Not that I am an expert or anything, but I hated how they reused the shots over and over again. The special effects were better in the other one, I think, though, and the fight scenes were definitely better.
I think the special effects were better in the other one.
They showed off the special effects more since it was one monster versus his environment, I suppose. Because really, think about it. Was there any military involvement in this one? Did you see the military attack the monsters?
That's weird, huh?
Yeah, nothing. It was just the monsters fighting.
So they just gave up by this movie.
They were like, let them fight.
But King Ghidorah was way cooler looking than anything else in the other
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I didn't see the same shot 50 times this time, so that wasn't annoying.
No, the shot just lasted 50 minutes.
That's true. The one was really bad. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, so we've had a contest going on for a little while. We're going to extend it one more week for you guys.
This is the final, not week, this is the final podcast. Before when we released our next podcast, we will announce the winner of the King Ghidorah figure. We're looking at him now.
Yes.
He arrived from overseas recently. He's all gold. We could paint him.
He is.
Give him the Technicolor Dream wings.
Yeah, depending on what the winner wants, but really.
He's Nihonjin. He's Japanese.
So he's got the tag on him that is Japanese. He's slightly larger than the Godzilla figure, which I think, well, no, he's really the same size. But realistically, I think Ghidorah is a little bigger than Godzilla. Looks good. Nice little piece. Not articulate. It's more like a statuette type thing. But yeah.
If you want him, give us an iTunes review.
Doesn't have to be 5 stars.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Just saying.
It doesn't. The only person who can't get this is Bainjum because he won our last one.
No, he didn't. Someone else did. Bainjum's wanted to win one.
Oh, Bainjum won a different one.
He won it for Nude Clan.
Nude Clan, that's right. But different podcast.
What we want to say is all reviews are always eligible except for people who have won. So even past reviews, we encourage the new reviews. It really helps us out. It makes us appear,
makes us stand out
in
the iTunes
more often. So they're all eligible for this figure.
Yeah, if you're
we'll
from
send it to you.
Canada or the USA. Let's
don't have to pay shipping. Nothing.
Caveat with that. So this is Schweiss, can you read that? I can't read that.
Yeah, I can. We got a 5-star review titled "Scratches My Kaiju Itch."
Is that like a Godzilla itch where it gets hit in the crotch?
Probably. By True Kill Duck 69. I'm fairly new to kaiju movies, only diving into them full force after the 2014 Legendary movie. I fell in love and collected all 30 Gojira movies and have watched them multiple times. It's nice to hear others' perspectives on the movies and learn fun facts while rewatching or driving to work. Always entertaining. It's also gotten me to pursue Toho movies outside of Gojira. King Kong Escapes and Rodan might have been lost to him forever without you guys. Keep up the good work and don't die hiking. Assume that was...
Oh, thank you. I didn't. I only lasted 2 days of true hiking, and then after that I did day hikes for a while, and now I'm back to normal. But
we don't have Ghost Joe with us. We have real Joe in the flesh.
I only did a third of the
survived.
Hike. But thank you for your well wishes. We also got an email. So yeah, they're eligible for the prize, by the way. We also got an email on our contact form. By the way, guys, we have a brand new website. Drew mentioned it during the commentary, but I'm going to mention it now. GodzillaPodcast.com, brand new website. It runs beautifully. There's places that you can support our site. Look at the old posts. There's a nice little contact page. If you want to send us an email like we just got here, do it through there. And then our forums, by the way, I mean, we have our whole podcast network forums in one place, but the forums have been have been changed, and they are streamlined and fast and beautiful. So please join our forums there, and so that me and Drew can talk about Godzilla with you. So we got this from, I'm sorry, what the name's at the top? Can you
Elijah Reed 98.
Elijah Reed 98. Godzilla podcast feedback. Was just on iTunes looking for podcasts, typed in Godzilla as well. I'm a kaiju fan, and found you guys, and I don't regret it. You guys are quite informative. I thought I knew Godzilla, but I never knew about Kozilla or others. Please continue this series. Also look up Yu-Gi-Oh! Kaiju series. It's a deck that I run. So,
okay.
Drew, do you play Yu-Gi-Oh?
You did more than myself.
I did. I had a good year and a half where I played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh. I mean, it's been a while, but definitely played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh. It's a deck that I run, but the cards and inspirations are also great. And he's asking when we update. When do we update, Drew?
It's summertime. This is supposed to be a bi-weekly podcast. I know that sounds like it's 2 podcasts a week. That's actually a podcast every 2 weeks.
Yes.
That's what we go for. Currently, Joe has some problems. Not mental.
Well, I mean,
debatable. But it's slowed down the pace of the podcast. They will come out. We will continue. Posts. Once we get our schedules figured out, it'll be more often.
Yes.
That's what we can promise you at this point.
We can promise that there will be a podcast episode.
Always.
Unless one of us dies.
And yeah, even then, in spirit. But there will be giveaways. And speaking of a teaser, after we give away King Ghidorah, after the next podcast, there will be another one immediately following. Yep.
He also would like us to do intros using scenes from the movies. Nah. Good idea.
I love to make up little sketches.
I feel like this show is such a loose show in comparison to my other shows that I host.
Yeah.
That it's like I want to keep it kind of what it is. Like it's beautiful, innocent thing.
There's a charm.
There's a charm in it, and
a baby-like charm.
I have thought about doing like jingles, and I have thought about doing movie clips and music and stuff like that. But I really feel like we got this.
Yeah, it's not what it's about. Not here.
It's about bare bones. This is podcasting at its
in its purest form.
That's what I was going for.
Yeah,
That's
there you go. There you go. But thank you very much for your email, and thanks for enjoying the show. And I guess we'll look up Yu-Gi-Oh! Kaiju. I didn't even know that was a thing.
I've thought about, because I play a lot of Pokemon, making Godzilla-based teams. Anyway, you can stretch this fandom out pretty far. But Joe, well, what I also wanted to say is with the streamlined website, we will be answering questions from the forum. There's actually one now. We have our own pages from the hosts where Joe will write articles. I wrote an article yesterday just about life in general. Mm-hmm. So check it out.
Yes.
Anyway, there was a question. Baindrum posted it, just quickly answered, because there's a little bit of news too. We've missed a lot of news now that Shin Gojira has released in Japan. Joe, did you hear much about Shin Gojira's reception?
Only what you tweeted to me.
Oh, okay. Generally positive.
Positive
people
reviews?
are liking the film.
Okay.
They're saying take for what it's worth a review. You got to form your own opinion. But people are liking it. It's made good money. It's the 6th highest opening in the Japanese box office this year, and the 8th for summer movies. So it's doing good. It's doing good for I believe, a 12-year gap since the last Godzilla film came out. So
I don't even think those movies did as good as this one did.
No, Godzilla's been off the scene for a while. So for something
this one has the new hotshot director on it.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so much hype about that, and Neon Genesis Evangelion, he was the director of that. Mm. Anyway, for a dormant series to come back as big as Godzilla is, he's pulled in good numbers at the box office. One could say kaiju-sized numbers.
Yes.
Anyway, Baindrum had a question. He loves... Baindrum's been blowing up the podcast. I'm not even pulling up the right one yet. But Baindrum was basically asking who he thinks would win a fight. If anyone's familiar with Neon Genesis Evangelion, there's these giant mech suits that fight against what are called angels, which are essentially giant aliens from the sky that come down to try to destroy humanity, or what's left of humanity. It's like a giant mech suit that's more human. It's like agile. Him versus Godzilla. What's your opinion? Versus
you know
any
what?
Godzilla.
The first thing I did, because I have bias, is
I know, me too.
I went Godzilla will win. But then I rewatched the first 2 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion, and I just recently watched two of the new rebuild versions for Neon Genesis because I'm kind of building up for
And
Shin
those
Gojira.
are films, not the episodes.
Yeah, they're the
So both
film
films.
versions, and they're like replacements. I don't know, like the
Yeah,
first film is
rebuilds.
really close to the series, but then the second film is like totally different.
Okay.
It's
reimagining?
It's a reimagining.
Okay.
You're right. I watched those, and I was like, oh no. Oh, Godzilla would not win in a fight.
I recently saw, because you allowed me to borrow the series, I watched them. I forgot about when the Ava Unit 1, this humanoid mech that has a person in it, when it goes berserk, Godzilla would not stand
and
a
it like
chance.
tears it apart. And,
I don't think that, because he takes so much damage from destructive beams or forces that would just, Godzilla's atomic breath pales in comparison to what this unit has withstood. I don't think that I don't think that a whole legion of Godzillas could go up against him.
I mean, it's hard. It like hurts to say it, but I do not think that that Godzilla
Well,
would win.
As someone from the outside that hasn't watched this anime, I'll go Godzilla.
All right.
are you gonna go? Have you seen any of the trailers for the new Godzilla film?
No, I haven't. I've seen how large he is, but
Yeah, he's
that's about it.
mighty. Like
It's cool looking.
the second trailer before
Not just
the
mighty
film,
thighs like the original there.
He does have thunder thighs.
Ah, yeah.
He does.
Good.
and tiny little arms.
That's a good sign. The thunder thighs say it all.
But in the second, so I don't know. We haven't seen the film yet. I believe that perhaps Shin Godzilla could stand a chance. I'm saying that very, very like, hypothetically, because in the second trailer, right before the release of the film, it's basically just military unloading on Godzilla's face and upper chest. So, his weak spots. It doesn't phase him at all. Doesn't phase him a single bit. So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe there's going to be like a little animatic, like a little animation of the Ava unit versus Godzilla, and it'll be an it's a fan fight. We want a fan fiction fight, and our opinions, Ava unit would destroy.
So if you want more Godzilla news and stuff and you want to keep up to date, Drew always retweets these little pieces of Godzilla information. So you can, Drew, where can they find you?
At Drew Daybell, that's Daybell, or just at Gojira Jaeger, that's kind of my handle, that's Jaeger. I'm constantly Godzilla news, general movie news, mostly horror. And I'm always tweeting them at Joe too, so you could follow Joe at...
Joe, you can follow me at Joseph DeGolyer, that's DEGOLYER.
Yes.
And I always talk about movies.
Joe is a film buff. Would you consider yourself a film fanatic? Are you that humble?
I'm a filmmaker. I'm a filmmaker.
Can you hear the crickets?
Yeah, I know. I know.
What films? Just kidding.
Well, I made some commercials.
Oh, there you go.
Joe's an aspiring filmmaker.
Nah, I'm aspired. No,
Joe knows his stuff.
I do know my stuff. Thank you very much.
And maybe a final bit of news in at least in Hollywood, we have a trailer for Kong Skull Island with Tom Hiddleston. Who's got the best Michael Caine impersonation?
Right.
Michael Caine.
Michael Caine.
And John Goodman, Samuel Jackson. Is it Emily Blunt? I believe is her name. No.
You're talking about the Room Girl.
No, I want to say it's Emily Blunt.
She's
but
in
it may
Room?
not be.
No, she's in the girl in Room is in Kong Skull Island.
I could have her name.
She won the
wrong.
movie.
She won the Academy
Anyway, some
Award.
high-level actors, big-name actors in this Kong Skull Island film, which will set up
Brie
this-
Larson.
Brie Larson.
Brie
Yeah, that's her
Larson.
name.
That's going to be setting up
great.
the Hollywood universe for Godzilla 2, essentially. We're going to have Kong Skull Island come out, which we already have a trailer and teaser posters. The cinematography in it looks breathtaking.
Yeah,
like
that's
when it
pretty
shows, there's a shot of behind all these helicopters coming towards the legs and the lower torso of King Kong, and everything's on fire, and it just looks amazing. So I can't say much for the story. What I've learned is that it's going to take place in the late 70s, early 80s, before the time when we knew what everything was on the Earth with satellite mapping and imagery. So it's kind of more of a mysterious era. This island just pops up, and people go to explore it, to navigate it. They think it's just going to be a simple mission, right? Turns out the island's full of giant monsters. The big monster, the big kahuna of the island being Kong. So it's going to introduce some big monsters, which will bring us into Godzilla 2, which we've been promised we'll see. It's going to have we've never seen a Hollywood version of Rodan, King Ghidorah, and Mothra alongside Godzilla. After that, and we're already talking 2018, 2019 at this point, finally, we'll get King Kong versus Godzilla, the legendary film.
That's a huge King Kong.
Yes, it's going to be the Kong.
Either that or he's going to look like Yoda finding Count Dooku in episode 2.
I never thought of that comparison.
This is sounding a lot like the Marvel universe. Like, we're going to have the movie with a bunch of them in it, and then we're going to have their own spin-off movies.
And then we need that Pacific Rim spin-off with the Godzilla. That's what we need.
We have a Pacific Rim 2, Guillermo, however you say his first name, Del Toro. He's not tied with the movie anymore. He's not going to be directing it or have anything to do with it. Maybe that'll be for the better. I trust him as a director, but we'll see. Anyway, we're going to get these films. It's a good time to be a Godzilla fan.
Yes.
Basically, I think they're doing it right because unlike how we've discussed from this current era of movies that we're commentating on, they just pumped them out yearly. This time they're taking real gaps in between films. I don't know of any sequels of Shin Godzilla beyond Shin Godzilla, the Toho one that just was released. I think they were testing the waters with this one. It's done good, so there's going to be a sequel. It's not announced yet or confirmed, but it's a really good time to be a Godzilla fan because they're going to take breathing room, like a couple years between films. And so it allows general audiences and fans to
get excited.
Exactly, to gain hype, gain momentum, and not be burnt out. And also, they can take more time writing the screenplay and the script.
Also that.
Yeah, kind of make it a quality film, you know, something that people
at least they have more time to do it.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean it will be.
Exactly, according to rewrites and whatever. But
doesn't matter if it's better than this movie or if it's better than
the Matthew Broderick.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Godzilla Raids Again is way worse than the American Godzilla. I said it. I freak and said it.
We got 2.
Sorry, that was an accident.
PG-13 movies are allowed 2.
Sometimes. Mostly they're only allowed 1.
Well, there's no violence.
Sometimes they do.
There's no violence in this, so we're good.
That's good, yeah. Thank
goodness.
Gosh, I'm so sorry if your kids are listening to this. No, but
I'm not though.
Our other shows are not censored,
and some are explicit in this podcast, but we generally try to keep it clean.
Yeah, what was I saying?
You were saying the worst Godzilla movie.
Oh yeah. Oh come on, Gigantus the Fire Monster versus the American Godzilla. I would rather watch the American Godzilla any day. I know that you listeners out there will go, what?
When you say American Godzilla, do you mean the American version of the first
one? Yeah.
Wait, no. Oh, you're talking Matthew Broderick.
I am talking Matthew Broderick. I would rather watch
not true Godzilla.
From my memory, I mean, it could be worse than I remember, but from my memory, Godzilla from 1998 is better than Gigantus the Fire Monster.
You'd take a modern day giant end of the world movie cloaked in a Godzilla skin, partially Jurassic Park reimagined with the little babies and akin to raptors in that film.
Yep.
Over what? Over Gigantus.
Over Gigantus.
Yes, Gigantus is that bad, but that's also a movie from the 50s. So, you know.
Yeah, but movies didn't get any better. I
refuse
to take
eras
that
of films.
as I know people say that kind of crap all the time, and it pisses me off because I'm like, you haven't seen the good movies from the 50s. Often I have to be like, what are you talking about? I mean, movies, there's always been good movies and there's always been bad movies, and they're always at the same time. So
I do think they do get better, though.
In general,
I think the 70s for American film is the best, but for Japanese film, I think the 50s is the best.
As is shown through Gojira, the very first Godzilla film. It's spectacular. It's a masterpiece, in my opinion. So we hope to really be able to...
And the Ozu films and the Mizoguchi films and the Kurosawa films are all in those years.
Kurosawa. If nothing else, go Kurosawa. You can't go wrong. Generally.
You can't go his early movies. You can't go wrong.
The ones he's known for, Seven Samurai.
No, the ones he's known for are great.
Well, we'll hope to
great
bring
movies.
to an audience is the love that we have for these films and the appreciation. Check them out. They're fun movies.
Yeah, I got
fun
one
to watch in groups. We always watch these in groups, and they're so much fun to watch in as a
Yeah,
group
you can
of
laugh
friends.
at it. It's cool.
Laugh or be like, ooh, if it's a good one, really appreciate it.
And one more thing, we mentioned Baindra's question. I know Baindram hosts a podcast, Drew, and this podcast is
He
tied
had a
to
show.
Godzilla. It's Evangelion a commentary. So if you want more commentaries and you're interested in the Neon Genesis Evangelion series, and for some odd reason you have the $300 to get the DVDs, which I didn't know my DVD set was worth that much till I just kind of glanced on Amazon. I was like, what? So if you can get a hold of the DVDs for the Neon Genesis Evangelion series, first off, it is a really good series. I think it kind of gets a little muddled in the middle, but it's a good series.
It's a series that isn't what you think it's going to be, and so it can take you by surprise. That's my.
It's far more
of it.
serious than any other Japanese.
I thought it was going to be
cartoons
just
that I've
a
ever
giant mech anime, and it was so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's psychological.
It's crazy.
Yes.
So go check that out if you're interested in that, and if you're a fan of Evangelion. And Drew, I think that's going to be it for this week.
I believe so as well. It was great to do this. Great to be back.
Oh yeah, you can check out Caleb and our other shows, Ultima Final Fantasy, Nude Clan, and Super Sexy Swinging Fan Fiction.
Tweet me at UFF Podcast if you hate on my my presence.
There you go.
Who's in more shows technically? You?
am.
Oh, okay. Well,
We've been in both.
but like I guess
Who's done more
we've been in
podcasts?
Joe
It's
is
me.
in this one. You're not. You're a guest to this one.
Caleb has done the most podcasts.
Okay.
There's been
Caleb's
Super Sexy is once a week.
Yeah, it's
Caleb
been
owns the
over a
podcast
year.
hog. He's the podcast hog king.
Kinda.
Yeah, okay.
And he's been more guest appearances than other podcasts.
Caleb's an all-around
There you go.
podcaster.
There you go. This is what we've become.
Yeah.
Caleb dabbles. He dabbles.
Right. I dabble in it all.
You know, it's
tips
funny.
it.
It's funny when we're recording our other shows, and then Caleb will be like, I'm trying to like he'll whenever he watches the movie, and he said it today, and he said it before. I remember he'll go, maybe I should do all the shows this week, and then he'll like stroke his beard,
Yeah. Yes.
like
It's like maniacal. Take over the world, Mr. Burns.
we're
Excellent.
recording in his house because
Yeah.
this is where our recording stuff is at. It's like, yeah, I guess he could just come on.
It's like
if he wants.
it's like Batman v Superman, and he like travels by bat in the beginning, and he's like starts getting lifted up by him. That's how it is. No bats though, because that's really weird.
We need to just not even announce that Caleb's in the podcast. Start doing the podcast. Caleb just like pipes in all of a sudden.
Yeah.
We're like, oh yes, Caleb, and then it's kind of like we barely acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And then it pipes in again. Oh yes, Caleb.
I'll just like go do stuff around the house from now on. Like,
Yeah,
just like, go do some
vacuum.
dishes. And
Yeah,
like,
then
hey,
don't vacuum,
Yeah, I hate this
please.
part. See how they reused it? Yeah.
So anyway, in this
And
part,
That'd be even more casual. If you guys truly want a casual show, I mean, we can make it happen.
all
There's
right,
a limit. Anyway,
all right, that's gonna be it for this week.
thank you for listening.
Yes.
Thank you for your support in any way. Thank you for your participation.
Oh shit.
I gotta say, I've barely started tweeting for real to the fans of these podcasts, the friends of the podcast, those people who are the diehards that
Yeah, they're
tweet,
always on the
that are on the forums.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're so much fun to interact with, and you guys are awesome. So if you listen to the end of this podcast, thank you.